upon my return to where I live, the town that I live, and the return from my journey after climbing the mountain, so much is clarifying and getting simpler for me. And they're messages that build on one another. So each message, as kind of as of a couple days ago, seems to be building. First, it was talking about the work of the process of uncovering your stories and really starting to move energy. And so I'm going to kind of classify that as putting tools in your tool belt. And I also spoke about how when I went on the trip, every family has family dynamics, but because I set an intention of a really open heart, it kind of changed our whole previous dynamic. Listen, we don't always fight, but this one was exceptionally loving and rounded. It felt really open and beautiful. And everyone played their part. Everyone's energy played their part, but setting that intention, I think, really helped bring that about. But yesterday and into the evening and this morning, what came up for me is open heart is imperative because it opens your heart for learning. It keeps you in that state of beginner's mind. It keeps you in that state of absorption and expansion. But you have to have a shield. Open heart is imperative, but it can't be open where there's no containment and your guts are spilling out, because then you're actually making yourself a victim because you're waiting for someone to just scoop you open. I used to live there. I absolutely used to live there. I would leave with my heart open thinking, this is the way I'm going to find true love, true companionship, true connection. But really, what I was doing is I was spilling my guts on the table, waiting for someone else to take care of them, or muck about in them, which definitely happened. So your protection of your own soul body. I'm going to call it your soul body, not just your physical body. It's the extension of that. It's the energy that you put out into the world is your responsibility to protect. And so you do this through really just cultivating shields. One way to do this in a very practical way is creating very clean boundaries. So, meaning that when you start to get into it with a loved one, with a coworker, whoever it is, you are very clear about what's yours and then the boundary and what's theirs. Because you may be having a visceral reaction to something that's not yours to carry. And so, what you're doing by carrying it is, first of all, you're robbing that person of their responsibility. You're almost victimizing them because you're taking it on yourself, which is not your job. And you're also martyrizing yourself because now you're taking on something that's not yours, and eventually you're gonna resent it. You cannot do the work of two. You do the work of one. You do your work. And the real act of love is offering to your loved one, this isn't mine. This argument that we're having, here's what I own 100%, but this part just isn't mine. And with that, those clean boundaries, and they're not always easy to set. I am someone that is a very natural entangler. So I pay very close attention with my intimate relationships that I am not codependent, that I am not looking for healing externally, because that is only going to come from the inside. No one else can provide me safety. This is something that comes up all the time. You know, a man's supposed to hold space for a woman and make her feel safe. No, that's complete bullshit. Trust will build a solid foundation. The only person that can keep you feeling safe is you. You have to create your own safety. And that is exactly part of creating shields and boundaries. You have to take up the sword and make yourself safe. Now, it doesn't need to be a battle. So maybe taking up the sword was the wrong analogy. Sometimes you need the battle to create the boundary. But sometimes it's just a simple knowing your edge, knowing where the line is, having that knowledge of yourself to say, I go this further and no more. And the rest just isn't really me. And remember, handing it back to that person with love, not throwing it like a flamethrower, but handing it back with love allows them to look at it in a different way. And if they disagree, you go through it. You go through the process. You discuss it. You talk about it. True, real boundaries and self guidelines come from the inside out. Now, and they don't just come from your brain, right? Making this conscious decision of, I'm going to make sure I do this. No, they really come from your soul body, because we all emanate this huge energy field. And if you're working on that, you're going to cultivate more and more. I can feel mine growing. I'm working on that. And my capacity has grown. With every stretch, my capacity grows, and then my field grows, which is amazing. And you like it's kind of a beneficial self-fulfilling prophecy. And that is where the real, I'm going to call, I hate to use the word psychic shields, but I'm going to say that is where your own emotional protection of your energy needs to reside. It's not in your brain. It's got to come from your heart and from the energy. You can feel it. And if you start to pay attention to when somebody's energy is kind of encroaching, and when you feel something, and the quickest way to do this, and this is what I always kind of bring us back to, is alignment. If your energy really feels in alignment, your boundaries are probably pretty clean. If something's a little bit wrong, you could have someone else's energy a little bit screwed up or mixed up, or maybe you've gone to the side. It's a constant check, right? Because I will also say that these boundaries need to be somewhat elastic, because to really allow an intimate relationship to expand and grow, and I don't just mean romantic, I mean your relationship with your children, your relationship with your really intimate friends. In order to that, for that to really deepen and really build that trust, you've got to allow a little bit of your energies to kind of mix and play. But at the core of you, it's got to be clean. It's got to be clean. Because that's when things get messy, and that's when you're going to kind of lose your hold. The ego will take over. You work from your head, not your heart. Those things start to like whirl up, right? And then suddenly you're like, what the fuck is going on? And that also adds to that feeling of disquiet that I spoke about yesterday. And I would like you, if you haven't watched yesterday's video, watch it, because I talk about this feeling of something big coming. And having your shields in place is a huge part of dealing with that. It's not just going to be, it's going to be pressure, right? The pressure is building. You can feel the pressure build in the energy field, in the way the world stage is going. And I call it a stage because so much of it is staged. But you can feel that. You can feel that. You might feel it as just disquiet, but you feel it. And so that now it is imperative to make your own psychic shields strong. But keep your heart open. Closing your heart is not protecting yourself. Closing your heart is making sure your capacity never expands. It's making sure that you never grow. Yeah, it's keeping you safe, but it's also keeping you completely contained and in chains to the way you are now. Freedom requires an edge. It requires some wildness. It requires some war. So that's what I leave you with today. I leave you to look at, where are your shields? Where are your boundaries? When you scan just physical feelings from your root up slowly, does it feel in alignment, or do you get stuck? Do you feel something off? Are you stuck in your heart because you're hurting or you're closed? Does it stick in your throat because you're not fucking telling the truth? Pay attention to that today. And I will see you tomorrow.